Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Moment. The weight of newborn Lily felt right in my arms. Her tiny fingers curled around my thumb as I gently rocked her. For a moment, I forgot about the tension in the room, the sideways glances from Della, my sister-in-law, who never approved of me marrying her precious sister. "You're a natural, Theo," said Della, though her tone suggested otherwise. I adjusted the baby in my arms, careful not to wake her. I'd always wanted children, but Nicolette, my wife of 8 years, had other plans. Career first, family later. I respected her choice, even if it pierced me like a thorn. Just then, little Lily stirred, her face scrunching up. Before I could react, she threw up on my new shirt. I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled, wiping her mouth with the burp cloth. The door opened as Nicolette walked in, her eyes immediately darting to the stain on my shirt. "That baby knows what garbage feels like," she said, the corners of her lips curling into a smirk. Della snorted. "She learns fast." Bryce, Della's husband, raised his phone. The camera flash momentarily blinded me as he captured my humiliation. "That's our family clown," he announced, already tapping away, probably sharing my shame with their friends. I said nothing, just kept rocking Lily until her eyelids fluttered and she drifted back to sleep. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a realization that had been brewing for years. I wasn't just the butt of a joke. I was the family punching bag. After handing Lily back to Della, I excused myself to change my shirt. In their guest bathroom, I stared at my reflection. Theo Lockridge, 37, successful architect, reduced to a punchline. The man looking back at me had hollow eyes, a forced smile. How long had I been performing this role? My phone buzzed with a text notification. It was from Axel, my oldest friend. "Still on for poker tonight?" I texted back. Wouldn't miss it. What I didn't tell him was that poker night had saved my sanity these past few months. It gave me a reason to leave the cold emptiness of my marriage, even if just for a few hours. Back at Della and Bryce's house, I maintained the facade, laughed at their jokes, helped with dinner, played the perfect brother-in-law. All while my mind worked, cataloging each slight, each dismissive comment. "You're quiet tonight," Nicolette said on our drive home, her fingers tapping impatiently on her phone screen. "Just tired," I replied, keeping my eyes on the road. "Della thinks you were weird with the baby." "Does she?" I asked, feigning disinterest. "You know how she is. Overprotective." Nicolette laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "She's worried you'll want one now. And that would be terrible, wouldn't it?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Nicolette finally looked up from her phone. "We've talked about this, Theo. My career is taking off. The timing isn't right." I nodded, letting it go as I always did. "Of course." Later that night, after Nicolette had fallen asleep, I slipped out of bed and went to my home office. The poker game had ended hours ago, but my mind was racing. I opened my laptop and typed in a search, "private investigator in Portland." The decision wasn't impulsive. It had been forming for months, fed by suspicious late nights at the office, guarded phone conversations, and the growing distance between us. The incident with Lily was simply the match that lit the fuse. 3 names appeared in my search results. I selected Valeria Holt, a former FBI agent with stellar reviews. I composed an email, careful with my wording, and hit send before I could second-guess myself. As I closed my laptop, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting, I was acting. The family clown was about to take off his makeup. Chapter 2, The Discovery. Valeria Holt didn't look like the private investigators from war films. With her sensible pantsuit and practical bob cut, she could have been mistaken for an accountant or a real estate agent. But her eyes, sharp, observant, betrayed her profession. "Your suspicions aren't uncommon, Mr. Lockridge," she said, taking notes as we sat in a quiet corner of a cafe 3 miles from my office. "Most clients come to me after months, sometimes years of denial. I'm not in denial, I replied, sliding an envelope across the table. I just need confirmation. She nodded, pocketing the envelope without checking its contents. 2 weeks of surveillance. Phone records if I can get them. I'll need a key to your house for the bug sweeps when your wife isn't home. I slid my spare key across the table. She works late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Book club on Wednesday evenings. Book club, Valeria repeated with a knowing look. I'll be in touch. For the next 2 weeks, I performed. At home, I was the attentive husband. At work, the focused architect. I even endured Sunday dinner at my in-laws, where Bernard Keller, Nicolette, and Della's father pontificated about politics while his wife, Sandra, critiqued every aspect of the meal she hadn't prepared. Theo's firm is designing the new library downtown, Nicolette mentioned during dessert, surprising me. She rarely discussed my work with her family. Government contract? Bernard asked, suddenly interested. Private funding, actually, I replied. The Whitaker Foundation. Huh, Bernard grunted, clearly disappointed it wasn't something he could leverage for his political connections. Later, as we drove home, I asked Nicolette, what was that about? You never talk about my work with your parents. She shrugged. Dad been asking. Says he hardly knows what his son-in-law does all day. The lie was so blatant I almost laughed. Bernard Keller had never shown the slightest interest in my career, except when he needed architectural advice for his vacation home. Advice he promptly ignored. Valeria called me the next morning. We need to meet. The cafe again, but this time she chose a booth in the back. She placed a USB drive on the table between us. It's as you suspected, Mr. Lockridge, she said, her voice professional but gentle. Your wife is having an affair. Even though I'd prepared myself for this moment, the confirmation felt like a physical blow. With whom? His name is Liam Riddell. He's a partner at her law firm. Valeria slid a photograph across the table. Liam Riddell. Of course. The man Nicolette had mentioned countless times in passing. Just a colleague. Just a friend. Just a man she was sleeping with behind my back. How long? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Based on my investigation, at least 6 months, possibly longer. She tapped the USB drive. Everything's here. Photos, videos, transcripts of conversations when possible. I also found something else you should know. She hesitated. Go on. Your in-laws, they're aware of the affair. Based on conversations I overheard, they've been providing alibis for your wife. The book club meets at your sister-in-law's house, where your wife changes clothes before meeting Mr. Riddell. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. Not just Nicolette, but her entire family conspiring against me, laughing at me. The family clown, indeed. There's more, Valeria continued. During my sweep of your house, I found evidence that your home computer has been accessed remotely. Someone's been monitoring your emails, your search history. Nicolette, the traces lead back to your brother-in-law's IP address. Bryce Crawford works in cybersecurity, correct? I nodded numbly. They weren't just betraying me, they were spying on me. Mr. Lockridge, Valeria's voice softened slightly. Given this level of invasion, I'd recommend speaking with a divorce attorney immediately. I can refer you to someone discreet. That won't be necessary, I said, pocketing the USB drive. I have other plans. Walking back to my car, I called Axel. I need your help, I said when he answered. Name it, he replied without hesitation. Remember that cabin you have in the mountains? I need to borrow it, and I need you to keep a secret. Theo, what's going on? I'll explain everything tonight. Can you meet me? Of course. But Theo, not on the phone. I cut him off. I think I'm being monitored. That evening, in Axel's cabin, I laid out everything. The affair, the family's involvement, the surveillance on my computer. Axel listened without interrupting, his expression darkening with each revelation. You need to divorce her ass, he said when I finished. Take her for everything. Divorce is too easy, I replied, staring into the fireplace. They'd all move on, find new targets for their mockery. No, I want them to understand what they've done. I want them to feel what I'm feeling. Theo, revenge isn't the answer. It's not revenge, Axel. It's justice. Back in my car, I plugged the USB drive in my laptop. For 3 hours, I watched my life unravel in high-definition video. Nicolette and Liam entering hotel rooms. Lunch dates where they held hands across the table. A dinner at my in-laws where they all, Nicolette, Liam, Della, Bryce, even Bernard and Sandra, laughed together. About me, no doubt. The final video was the most damning. Taken just 3 days ago, it showed Nicolette and Liam in our bed, our marital bed. As I watched them together in our home, something inside me hardened. The last traces of the man who had rocked baby Lily to sleep disappeared, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. I knew then what I had to do, not just to Nicolette, but to all of them. They had conspired to humiliate me, to reduce my existence to a punchline. I would show them how unfunny pain could be. Chapter 3. The Plan. The first step was to secure my finances. While Nicolette slept, I transferred half of our joint assets to a new account under my brother's name, Troy Lockridge, a wilderness guide who lived off the grid in Montana. Troy and I hadn't spoken in years, not since our parents' funeral, but blood runs thicker than water, especially when that blood is about to boil. My call woke him at 5 a.m. "Theo? Jesus, is someone dead?" "Not yet," I replied. "I need your help, Troy. And before you ask, yes, it's important." 2 hours and one difficult conversation later, Troy had agreed to hold the money for me. No questions asked, provided I gave him one honest answer. "Did she hurt you?" "They all did," I said simply. "Then I'm in." Next, I needed to create a false sense of security. For the next week, I was the perfect husband. I came home early, cooked dinner, suggested weekend getaways that I knew Nicolette would reject due to her work commitments. "You seem different," she commented one night as we got ready for bed. "More, I don't know, present." I smiled, just appreciating what I have. She looked almost guilty then, and for a brief moment, I wondered if there was anything left to salvage. But then her phone buzzed, and I caught the flash of Liam's name before she turned it over. The guilt vanished from her expression, replaced by the familiar mask of indifference. Whatever we'd had was long gone. My third move was to visit Benjamin Thorne, an old client who happened to be one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. But I wasn't there to file for divorce, not yet. "I need to know my options," I explained at his wood-paneled office. If I were to discover my wife was unfaithful. Benjamin's expression remained neutral. "Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, Theo. Infidelity isn't as significant a factor as it once was." "I'm not just talking about infidelity," I replied, sliding the dossier Valeria had prepared across his desk. "I'm talking about conspiracy, invasion of privacy, and possibly identity theft." Benjamin reviewed the documents, his eyebrows rising incrementally. "This is substantial. The surveillance of your computer alone could have criminal implications." "I thought so," I said, "but I don't want to move forward with any legal action." "Not yet." "Then why show me this?" "Because I need a trusted ally who understands the legal landscape. And because when the time comes, I want you to represent me." Benjamin leaned back in his chair. "Theo, I've known you for 10 years. You designed my office, for God's sake. Whatever you're planning, is it worth it?" I met his gaze steadily. "They made me a joke, Benjamin. I'm just delivering the punchline." With my financial and legal bases covered, I turned to the psychological warfare. This would require precision, patience, and perfect timing. The first target, Bryce Crawford, my tech-savvy brother-in-law, who'd been spying on my computer. His cybersecurity firm, Crawford Systems, had recently bid on a contract with the city to upgrade their information security. One email from an anonymous account to the city council, containing evidence of Bryce's unethical surveillance practices, would derail that bid instantly. But that would be too quick, too merciful. Instead, I made an appointment with Councilwoman Reeves, an acquaintance from several charity events. "Crawford Systems," she repeated when I casually mentioned them during our lunch. "We're considering them for our security upgrade. Do you know them?" "My brother-in-law is the CEO," I replied. Brilliant tech mind, but I'll let my voice trail off. "But," she prompted. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "This stays between us, right?" When she nodded, I continued. "There have been whispers about his methods. Nothing concrete, but enough to make me nervous about recommending him for sensitive government work." "Whispers? Just certain clients finding their personal data compromised after working with him." Nothing that's gone to court, but I shrugged. Councilwoman Reeves narrowed her eyes. I appreciate the heads up, Theo. We'll certainly do our due diligence. One seed planted. For Della, my approach needed to be more direct. Her weakness was her social standing. As the president of the Portland Garden Society and a fixture in local charity circles, her reputation was everything. I reached out to Fiona Reed, the Society's vice president, whom I'd met at several of Della's events. Over coffee, I mentioned that I was organizing a surprise charity gala for the Children's Hospital in honor of my niece Lily. I'd love your help, I told Fiona, but it needs to be absolutely secret. Della can't know. I want it to be a complete surprise. Fiona was delighted to be included in such a thoughtful gesture. Your sister-in-law will be so touched. She adores that little girl. I know, I replied with a warm smile. That's why this needs to be perfect. For the next 3 weeks, with Fiona's unwitting help, I systematically reached out to every member of the Garden Society, every social connection Della cherished, inviting them to a gala that would never happen. As for Bernard and Sandra Keller, their vulnerabilities were more straightforward: money and status. Bernard's investment firm, Keller Capital, managed funds for half of Portland's elite. But what few knew was that Bernard had been dancing on the edge of ethical boundaries for years. A casual lunch with Wade Hampton, an SEC investigator who consulted on one of my commercial projects, yielded the information I needed. Keller Capital? They've been on our watch list for a while. Wade admitted after I mentioned I was considering investing with them. Nothing actionable yet, but there have been patterns in their trading that raise flags. I'm surprised they haven't been investigated, I remarked. Wade shrugged. Bernard Keller has friends in high places. But between you and me, those friendships only go so far. One solid complaint from a high-profile client could change everything. The final and most important target was, of course, Nicolette and her lover, Liam Riddell. For them, I needed to strike at both their personal and professional lives. Liam's law firm, Barnes & Whitfield, prided itself on its ethical standards and family values. The managing partner, Eleanor Barnes, was a deeply religious woman who had built the firm's reputation on integrity. An anonymous package delivered to Eleanor's office would have been too obvious. Instead, I did something more subtle. I donated a significant sum to Eleanor's favorite charity, securing an invitation to their annual dinner where she would be the guest of honor. Mr. Lockridge, Eleanor greeted me warmly at the event. Your generosity was unexpected, but deeply appreciated. Please call me Theo, I insisted. And it's the least I could do. My wife speaks so highly of your firm's values. Nicolette is one of our brightest associates, Eleanor replied. We have high hopes for her future with us. As do I said, allowing a hint of sadness to creep into my voice. Eleanor, perceptive as she was successful, caught it immediately. Is everything all right? Perfect, I assured her with a forced smile. Just navigating the challenges of a two-career marriage. You know how it is. Indeed, she nodded sympathetically. The work-life balance can be demanding. But I've always believed that strong moral foundations at home translate to ethical practice in the workplace. I couldn't agree more, I replied, raising my glass in a toast. To moral foundations. As I drove home that night, my phone rang. It was Valeria. Mr. Lockridge, I've been monitoring as requested. There's been a development you should know about. I'm listening. Your wife and Mr. Riddell, they've booked a weekend at the coast. Cannon Beach, the Ocean View Resort. Next weekend. I smiled in the darkness of my car. Thank you, Valeria. That's exactly what I needed to know. All the pieces were in place. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. That night, as I lay awake beside Nicolette, listening to her peaceful breathing, I thought about baby Lily. How innocent she had been in my arms. How oblivious to the cruelty of the adults around her. That's our family clown, Bryce had said. Soon, they would all learn the difference between a clown and a puppet master. Chapter 4. The Betrayal. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as I packed my weekend bag. Nicolette watched from the doorway, coffee mug in hand. Seattle again? She asked, her tone casual but her eyes watchful. Client meeting, I replied, folding a shirt with deliberate care. The Westburg Tower project is behind schedule. I'll be back Sunday evening. She nodded, taking a sip of her coffee. I'll probably stay late at the office. The Jenkins case is going to trial next month. The Jenkins case. Another lie. According to Valeria's intel, the Jenkins case had been settled out of court 2 weeks ago. But I nodded as if I believed her. Don't work too hard, I said, zipping up my bag. I crossed the room and kissed her cheek, noting how she subtly tensed at my touch. Love you. You too, she replied automatically, already turning away, phone in hand. I left the house with my weekend bag and drove to Axel's. He was waiting in his driveway, a grim expression on his face. Last chance to back out, he said as I transferred my bag to his car. Not a chance. We drove in silence for the first hour, the city giving way to coastal forest. Finally, Axel spoke. I still think there are better ways to handle this. Name one. Divorce her. Take the high road. Move on with your life. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The high road. That's what decent people are supposed to take, right? While everyone else takes shortcuts and steps on their backs. This isn't you, Theo. The revenge, the manipulation. No, Axel. This is me. The real me. Not the doormat they've been wiping their feet on for years. We reached Cannon Beach by noon, checking into a small bed and breakfast half a mile from the Ocean View Resort. From our window, we could see the distinctive haystack rock jutting from the ocean. What's the plan? Axel asked as I unpacked my camera with its telephoto lens. First, we document. Then, we make our presence known, precisely when it will hurt them most. For the rest of the day, we surveilled the resort. My architectural training made it easy to identify blind spots, optimal vantage points. By evening, we had confirmed that Nicolette and Liam had checked in, their room facing the ocean on the 3rd floor. Now, what? Axel asked as we sat in our rented car across the street. I checked my watch. Now we wait. Based on their previous patterns, they'll have dinner at the resort restaurant, then drinks on the terrace. That's when we make our move. Sure enough, at 7:30 p.m., Nicolette and Liam emerged from the elevator into the resort's upscale restaurant. Through the large windows, I could see them being seated at an intimate corner table. Liam's hand rested on Nicolette's lower back as they walked, a casual intimacy that twisted the knife in my gut. I'm going in, I said, checking my appearance in the rearview mirror. Give me 10 minutes, then follow with the camera. The maitre d' greeted me with a professional smile. Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation? I don't, I replied, slipping him a folded $100 bill. But I'm hoping you might find room for one. His eyes flicked to the bill, then back to my face. Let me see what I can do, Mr. Lockridge. Theo Lockridge. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. He'd obviously checked in Nicolette and Liam earlier. But professionalism won out. Of course, Mr. Lockridge. Right this way. He led me to a table with a direct line of sight to where Nicolette and Liam sat, their heads bent close together, wine glasses already half empty. Neither noticed me, too engrossed in their conversation. I ordered a whiskey, neat, and watched. Nicolette laughed at something Liam said, her hand reaching across the table to touch his. It was strange, seeing her so animated, so genuine. With me, her smiles had become perfunctory, her laughter rare. Axel entered the restaurant, camera bag slung casually over his shoulder. He took a table near the bar, positioning himself for optimal coverage. I waited until their main courses arrived before making my move. Standing, whiskey in hand, I walked directly to their table. Fancy meeting you here, I said, my voice carrying in the sudden hush. Nicolette froze, fork halfway to her mouth. Liam's head snapped up, confusion giving way to recognition, then alarm. Theo, Nicolette managed, her face draining of color. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I replied calmly, turning to Liam. And you must be Liam Riddell. I've heard so much about you. The Jenkins case, right? Liam's jaw tightened. Theo, I can explain. No need. I cut him off, raising my glass in a mock toast. I understand completely. You're discussing legal strategy over a romantic dinner in a luxury resort 3 hours from Portland. Very professional. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Axel discreetly taking photos, capturing the tableau of shock and guilt. Please, Theo, Nicolette whispered, aware of the stares from nearby tables. Let's talk about this privately. Why? Afraid of making a scene? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. That's not like you, Nick. You didn't mind humiliating me in front of your family. Remember? When baby Lily threw up on me, and you call me garbage? Her eyes widened in recognition. That was a joke, Theo. We were all laughing. No, Nicolette. You were all laughing. At me. The family clown, right? I turned to Liam. That's what her brother-in-law called me. Did she tell you that part? Liam stood abruptly. I think you should leave. Or what? I challenged, stepping closer. You'll call security? Go ahead. Explain to them why you're here with another man's wife. A waiter approached nervously. Is everything all right here? Perfect, I replied without taking my eyes off Nicolette. I was just leaving. I drained my whiskey and set the glass on their table. Enjoy your weekend. I know I will. As I walked away, I heard Nicolette's desperate whisper, Theo, wait. But I didn't stop. Outside the restaurant, I took a deep breath of salt-tinged air. Axel joined me moments later. Got it all, he confirmed. But Theo, the look on her face. Don't, I warned him. Don't try to make me feel sorry for her. Back at our B&B, I reviewed the photos Axel had taken. Nicolette's shocked expression, Liam's barely controlled anger, the curious stares of the other diners. It was all perfect ammunition. What now? Axel asked as I downloaded the images to my laptop. Now we escalate. I opened my email and attached several of the photos. The recipients, Eleanor Barnes, managing partner at Liam's firm, the senior partners at Nicolette's firm, and a carefully selected group of their professional acquaintances. The subject line, professional ethics in practice. The body of the email was brief. I thought you should be aware of how 2 of your associates conduct business. I hesitated only briefly before hitting send. There would be no going back after this. Jesus, Theo, Axel muttered, watching over my shoulder. That's their careers you're torpedoing. They should have thought of that before they decided to torpedo my marriage. My phone rang almost immediately. Nicolette. I let go to voicemail. Then Liam called. Then Della. Then my father-in-law. I silenced my phone and turned to Axel. Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Axel looked troubled but nodded. I'm with you, man. All the way. Phase 2 began at dawn. While Nicolette and Liam were undoubtedly dealing with the fallout of my email, Axel and I drove to Della and Bryce's house. Thanks to Valeria, I had their weekend schedule. Farmer's market at 9 a.m., followed by Lily's swimming lesson at 11. At precisely 8:45 a.m., we parked down the street and waited. Right on schedule, Della emerged with Bryce, Lily strapped into her stroller. They locked up and headed toward downtown. Wait here, I told Axel, pulling on latex gloves. From my pocket, I removed the spare key Della had given Nicolette for emergencies, like providing an alibi for her affair. Inside their immaculate home, I moved purposefully. First, Bryce's home office. His computer was password protected, but I didn't need access. Instead, I placed a small device, courtesy of one of Illyria's contacts, beneath his desk near the power strip. A remote access module that would give me entrance to his system whenever I wanted. Next, I went through their financial documents, taking photos of bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns. Information was power, and I was arming myself for war. In their bedroom, I found what I was really looking for, Della's day planner, filled with notes about the Garden Society, charity events, and personal appointments. I flipped to next Saturday, the date of the non-existent gala I'd been planning with Fiona Reed. Della had already blocked it off. Children's hospital benefit, cocktail attire. Perfect. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it and left, locking the door behind me. Axel was visibly relieved when I slid back into the car. Did anyone see you? No, I assured him, but they'll feel the effects soon enough. By the time we returned to Portland that evening, my phone had 27 missed calls and 42 text messages. I ignored them all, except for one from Benjamin Thorne. Office. 8 a.m. tomorrow. Urgent. That night, I slept in Axel's guest room, more soundly than I had in months. Benjamin was waiting when I arrived at his office the next morning, his expression grave. You've been busy, he said as I took a seat across from him. I've been proactive. I corrected him. Theo, I agreed to represent you in a divorce. Not whatever this is. He gestured to a printout of the email I'd sent. This borders on harassment. It borders on justice, I countered. They harassed me for years. Mocked me. Cheated on me. Spied on me. All I'm doing is returning the favor. Benjamin sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. Nicolette has retained counsel. Patricia Walsh. I nodded, unsurprised. Patricia Walsh was known as the Barracuda in divorce court circles. Good. She'll need the best. This is going to get ugly, Theo. And expensive. I'm prepared for both. As I left Benjamin's office, my phone rang again. Nicolette. This time I answered. What have you done? She demanded, her voice raw with anger and what might have been fear. Nothing compared to what you've done, I replied calmly. You've ruined everything, she hissed. Eleanor Barnes has suspended Liam, pending an ethics review. My firm is talking about reputational damage, all because you couldn't handle the truth. I finished for her. That my wife was sleeping with another man? That my in-laws were helping her cover it up? That all of you thought it was hilarious to humiliate me? It wasn't like that, Theo. It was exactly like that. But here's what you need to know, Nicolette. This is just the beginning. What does that mean? The fear in her voice was unmistakable now. It means I'm no longer playing the role you assigned me. I'm not the family clown anymore. I'm the one writing the script now. I ended the call and blocked her number. Then I drove to the bank and withdrew $50,000 in cash. Money I'd been setting aside in a personal account Nicolette knew nothing about. Funds for the next phase of my plan. As I left the bank, I called Troy. How's the money holding up? I asked when he answered. Safe and sound, he assured me. But Theo, I've been thinking about what you said. About them hurting you. And I'm coming to Portland. You shouldn't have to face this alone. I hadn't expected this. Troy and I had drifted apart years ago, our lives taking drastically different paths. But blood calls to blood. When I can be there by tomorrow night. Just tell me where to meet you. With Troy on his way and Axel already by my side, my support system was solidifying. I would need them both for what came next, because the family that had mocked me was about to discover just how unfunny retribution could be. Chapter 5. The Isolation. Troy arrived bearing ghosts from our shared past. His appearance, beard fuller, shoulders broader, eyes harder, reminded me of our father in his final years. We embraced awkwardly in Axel's living room, years of distance momentarily bridged by blood and circumstance. You look like shit, he observed bluntly. Good to see you too, brother. Troy dropped his duffel bag and surveyed the evidence wall I'd created. Photos of Nicolette and Liam, financial documents, surveillance notes, all connected by red string in a web of betrayal. Jesus, Theo. This is some John Nash beautiful mind stuff right here. It's thorough, I corrected him. I need to understand every weakness, every vulnerability. Troy exchanged a glance with Axel, who shrugged helplessly. Okay, Troy said slowly. So what's the endgame here? Destroy them all and salt the earth. Something like that. Troy grabbed a beer from Axel's fridge and settled onto the couch. Then walk me through it. What's the plan? For the next hour, I laid out my strategy. Isolate each target, exploit their vulnerabilities, and finally deliver the killing blow, metaphorically speaking. The fake charity gala is this Saturday, I explained. Della has invited everyone in her social circle. When no one shows up, her reputation will be in tatters. All because she laughed when you got puked on? Troy questioned. Seems disproportionate. It wasn't just that, I snapped. She actively helped Nicolette cheat. Provided alibis, locations for them to meet. She knew everything. Troy held up his hands in surrender. All right. What about the brother-in-law? Bryce. His company's bid for the city contract was rejected yesterday. Councilwoman Reeves personally called to inform him that they had concerns about ethical standards. His stock is already down 18%. Axel whistled. And the in-laws? Bernard's investment firm is about to receive anonymous tips about certain irregular trading patterns. Nothing illegal. I'm not trying to send him to prison. Just enough to trigger an audit that will freeze his assets for months. And Nicolette? Troy asked quietly. What happens to her? I hesitated, the pain momentarily breaking through my calculated facade. She loses everything. Her career, her lover, her family support. Just like I did. Troy studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'm in. But Theo, promise me one thing. What? When this is over, you'll let it be over. You'll walk away and rebuild your life. I couldn't meet his eyes. Let's focus on the present. The next morning, I put phase 3 into motion. Using the remote access I'd planted in Bryce's computer, I extracted emails, financial records, client lists, anything that might be useful. What I found exceeded my expectations. Bryce had been using client data for personal gain, monitoring high-net-worth individuals' browsing habits to inform his own investments. It wasn't technically illegal, but it was deeply unethical and potentially career-ending if exposed. A call to Wade Hampton at the SEC laid the groundwork. Just hypothetically, I began, if someone were using privileged access to client data for personal financial gain. That would be a serious breach, Wade replied. The SEC would definitely be interested in reviewing such activity, even if it came from an anonymous source. Especially then, whistleblower protections exist for a reason. With that assurance, I compiled a dossier on Bryce's activities and scheduled it to be delivered to the SEC on Monday morning, after the charity gala debacle. Next, I turned my attention to Bernard Keller. His investment firm managed hundreds of millions in client funds, but my research had uncovered troubling patterns in how those funds were allocated, always seeming to favor companies where Bernard or his associates held personal stakes. Again, not technically illegal without proof of intent, but certainly enough to trigger regulatory scrutiny. I prepared a similar dossier for the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, scheduled for Monday delivery. For Sandra Keller, Nicolette's mother, the approach needed to be more personal. Her weakness was her social standing, much like Della's. As the chairwoman of the Portland Symphony Orchestra Board, she prided herself on her cultural contributions. A few calls to fellow board members, expressing concerns about financial irregularities under Sandra's leadership, planted seeds of doubt that would bloom into suspicion by the next board meeting. By Friday evening, everything was in place for Saturday's non-existent gala. Fiona Reed had dutifully invited every member of the Garden Society and Della's social circle. The venue, the ballroom at the Riverside Hotel, had been booked but not paid for. Caterers had been contacted but never confirmed. When Della arrived in her cocktail dress, expecting to find a gala honoring her daughter, she would instead find an empty ballroom and confused hotel staff. The humiliation would be public and devastating. Saturday morning, I received a text from Fiona. Everything's set for tonight. Della suspects nothing. You're such a wonderful brother-in-law. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then, unexpectedly, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Mr. Lockridge? It's Lily's nanny, Petra. Della gave me your number as an emergency contact. My pulse quickened. Is everything all right? Not really. Lily has a fever, and I can't reach Della or Bryce. They're not answering their phones, and they left hours ago for some event preparation. I felt a twinge of guilt. My fake gala was keeping them away from their sick child. How high is her fever? I asked, already reaching for my keys. 101.3. I've given her children's Tylenol, but I'm worried. The pediatrician said to bring her in if it goes over 102. I'll be right there, I promised, ending the call. Troy looked up from his laptop. Problem. Lily's sick. Della and Bryce are out preparing for the gala that doesn't exist. So what? You're going to help him now. I grabbed my jacket. I'm going to help Lily. She's innocent in all this. 30 minutes later, I was at Della and Bryce's house. Petra, a young woman with worried eyes, answered the door with Lily in her arms. The baby was flushed, whimpering softly. Thank you for coming, Petra said, relief evident in her voice. I've been trying to reach them for hours. I took Lily gently, feeling her forehead. She was burning up. Let's get her to the doctor. Do you have her car seat? At the pediatrician's office, I held Lily while she wailed through her examination. An ear infection, the doctor concluded. Painful, but treatable with antibiotics. You're a natural with her, the nurse commented as I soothed Lily after her examination. I thought about Nicolette's mockery when Lily had thrown up on me. She's my niece, I said simply. By the time we returned to Della and Bryce's house, it was nearly 6 p.m. gala time. My phone buzzed with frantic texts from Fiona, reporting that Della had arrived at the Riverside Hotel to find no gala, no guests, and very confused hotel staff. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow as I rocked Lily, now sleeping peacefully after her medication. Petra hovered anxiously. Should I keep trying to reach them? Let them have their evening, I said, making a split-second decision. I'll stay with Lily until they get back. It was nearly 10 p.m. when I heard keys in the front door. Angry voices preceded Della and Bryce into the house. Can't believe you didn't confirm the booking yourself, Bryce was saying. Me? You're blaming me? I trusted Fiona. She handled all the details. They stopped short when they saw me in their living room, Lily asleep in my arms. What the hell are you doing here? Bryce demanded, his face flushing with anger. Petra stepped forward quickly. I called him. Lily had a fever of 102, and I couldn't reach either of you. Della's anger transformed instantly into maternal concern. A fever? Is she okay? Ear infection, I said, carefully transferring Lily to her mother's arms. The pediatrician prescribed amoxicillin. First dose was at 7 p.m. Next one due at 7 a.m. Della clutched Lily protectively, confusion warring with gratitude on her face. I don't understand. After what you did to Nicolette. This isn't about Nicolette, or you, or any of that, I replied, gathering my jacket. This is about Lily. She's innocent. I moved toward the door, but Bryce blocked my path. Wait just a minute. You can't just walk in here, play the hero, and leave. Not after you've destroyed our lives. I haven't destroyed anything, I said calmly. I've simply revealed the truth. The truth? Bryce scoffed. You call what you did to Nicolette and Liam revealing the truth. You humiliated them publicly, got them suspended from their firms. You're pathetic, Theo. Always have been. I met his gaze steadily, and you've been spying on my computer for months, helping your sister-in-law cheat on me. Who's pathetic now? Bryce's face paled. What are you talking about? Don't insult my intelligence. I have proof of everything. Your remote access to my computer, the surveillance, the lies, all of it. Della stepped forward, still holding Lily. Theo, please. Whatever you think happened, save it. I cut her off. I know exactly what happened. You all decided I was a joke. The family clown. Well, I'm not laughing anymore, and soon, neither will any of you. I brushed past Bryce and left, their stunned silence following me out the door. In my car, I called Troy. It's done, I said. Della and Bryce have been humiliated publicly. The SEC report on Bryce goes out Monday morning. And the baby? Troy asked, his voice soft with concern. She'll be fine, I assured him, trying to ignore the tightness in my chest. It's just an ear infection. Sunday morning, I woke to another barrage of calls and texts. Nicolette, Della, Bernard, all demanding explanations, threatening legal action. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the final phase of my plan. The complete dismantling of their carefully constructed lives. For Nicolette and Liam, I had saved the most devastating blow for last. While going through the evidence Valeria had gathered, I discovered something unexpected. Liam Riddell wasn't just Nicolette's lover. He was also romantically involved with another partner at the firm, a married man with 3 children. This revelation would destroy whatever remained of Liam's professional reputation and ensure Nicolette understood the true nature of the man she had betrayed me for. I compiled the evidence, photos, text messages, hotel receipts, into a final dossier. This one would go directly to Eleanor Barnes, who had already suspended Liam for his affair with Nicolette. Adding a second affair, this one potentially even more scandalous, would be the final nail in his professional coffin. As for Nicolette, I had one last piece of leverage, her application for partnership at her firm. For years, she had prioritized her career over our marriage, working nights and weekends to impress the senior partners. What she didn't know was that I had become close friends with Joseph Winters, the founding partner, through my architectural work on his vacation home. One call to Joseph would be enough to ensure that Nicolette's partnership application received the same consideration she had given our marriage. None. But as I reached for my phone to make that call, I hesitated. The image of Lily, innocent and vulnerable in my arms, flashed through my mind. Was I becoming the very thing I despised? A person who hurt others without remorse? No, I decided. This wasn't about hurting them. It was about justice, about consequences for actions, about revealing the truth they had so carefully hidden. I made the call. Chapter 6, The Confrontation. Monday morning dawned with the clarity that follows a storm. I woke in Axel's guest room, mentally rehearsing the day ahead. By noon, the SEC would have received my report on Bryce. By evening, Eleanor Barnes would have evidence of Liam's second affair. And somewhere in between, Nicolette would learn that her partnership dreams were over. Justice, I reminded myself. Not revenge. I showered, dressed, and joined Troy and Axel in the kitchen. They exchanged glances as I entered, their conversation abruptly halting. "What?" I asked, pouring myself coffee. "Nothing," Axel replied too quickly. "Just discussing options." "Options for what?" Troy sighed, never one to soften his words. "Options for when this all blows up in your face, Theo." "Which it will." I set my mug down carefully. "It won't. Everything's calculated." "Except emotions," Troy countered. "Except the fact that these are real people whose lives you're systematically destroying. People who, until recently, you loved. They stopped being people I loved when they decided I was a joke." Troy shook his head. "This isn't you, Theo. The brother I knew. The brother you knew was weak. I cut him off. A doormat. The family clown. I'm not that person anymore." My phone buzzed with a text from Benjamin. "Court appearance scheduled for 2 p.m. Emergency hearing requested by opposing counsel. Be there." I showed the message to Troy and Axel. "See? They're panicking, making desperate moves. Or they're fighting back," Troy warned. "Be careful, Theo." At 1:45 p.m., I arrived at the courthouse, Benjamin waiting on the steps. "This is irregular," he informed me, his expression grave. "Patricia Walsh has requested an emergency protective order against you." "On what grounds?" "Harassment, stalking, intentional infliction of emotional distress." "She's claiming you've orchestrated a campaign to destroy Nicolette professionally and personally." I laughed bitterly. "That's rich, coming from the woman who destroyed our marriage." "Theo, this is serious. If the judge grants this order, you could be barred from any contact with Nicolette, her family, her workplace." "Good. I don't want contact with any of them." Benjamin grabbed my arm, stopping me. "You're not listening. This could also prevent the kind of activities you've been engaging in. The emails, the reports to regulatory agencies. The judge could view those as continued harassment." That got my attention. "They can't stop me from reporting actual wrongdoing. They can if the court determines your primary motivation is to cause harm, not to report legitimate concerns." Inside the courtroom, I saw Nicolette for the first time since the restaurant confrontation. She sat beside Patricia Walsh, her posture rigid, eyes straight ahead. Beside her sat Bernard and Sandra Keller, their expressions thunderous. Behind them, Della and Bryce, both looking haggard. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, called the court to order. "We're here on an emergency motion for a protective order. Ms. Walsh, proceed." Patricia Walsh, every bit the barracuda of her reputation, approached the bench. "Your Honor, my client, Nicolette Lockridge, seeks protection from a systematic campaign of harassment and professional sabotage orchestrated by her estranged husband, Theodore Lockridge." For the next 20 minutes, Walsh detailed my actions. The confrontation at the restaurant, the emails to Nicolette and Liam's employers, the fake charity gala that had humiliated Della, the anonymous reports to regulatory agencies targeting Bryce and Bernard. "This is not the behavior of a wronged spouse seeking justice," Walsh concluded. "This is the calculated revenge of a man determined to destroy not just his marriage, but the lives of everyone connected to his wife." The judge turned to Benjamin. "Mr. Thorne, your response?" Benjamin rose, his demeanor calm but forceful. "Your Honor, while my client acknowledges certain actions taken in response to his wife's infidelity, he categorically denies any intent to harass or cause harm. Theodore Lockridge discovered not only that his wife was engaged in an extramarital affair, but that her entire family was complicit in deceiving him. He detailed the surveillance on my computer, the mockery I had endured, the calculated betrayal by people I had trusted. Any actions taken by my client were in direct response to these violations of privacy and trust. He reported actual wrongdoing to the appropriate authorities, as is his right as a citizen. The judge removed her glasses, her gaze shifting between us. Mrs. Lockridge, would you care to address the court regarding the allegations of infidelity and familial complicity? Nicolette rose, her voice steady despite her pale complexion. Your Honor, I acknowledge that I engaged in an extramarital relationship. That was wrong, and I take full responsibility for that decision. Here, she faltered slightly. However, Theo's response has been disproportionate and designed to cause maximum damage. He hasn't just exposed the affair. He's systematically attacked my career, my family's reputations, our financial stability. And the allegations that your family mocked Mr. Lockridge? That your brother-in-law referred to him as the family clown and photographed him when he was in a vulnerable position. Nicolette hesitated. There was an incident involving our niece. It was meant as harmless teasing, not malicious mockery. I couldn't contain my bitter laugh, drawing a sharp look from the judge. Mr. Lockridge, you'll have your chance to speak, she warned me. Mrs. Lockridge continued. What Theo doesn't mention is that after that incident, he changed. Became secretive, withdrawn. When I tried to connect with him, he pushed me away. The affair, it didn't happen in a vacuum. Our marriage had been struggling for years. The judge made notes, then looked up. Mr. Lockridge, would you like to respond? I stood, feeling every eye in the courtroom on me. Your Honor, my wife claims I changed after the incident with our niece. She's right. I did change. I opened my eyes. I described the moment of clarity I'd experienced, rocking Lily to sleep after being mocked by my family. I realized I'd been playing a role they assigned me. The passive, accommodating husband who would tolerate any disrespect, any betrayal. The family clown. I recounted discovering the affair, the surveillance on my computer, the web of lies spun by people I had trusted. Yes, I exposed the truth. Yes, I reported actual wrongdoing to the appropriate authorities. But I didn't fabricate anything. Every report I filed, every email I sent, contained only facts. The judge considered this. Mr. Lockridge, while I sympathize with the pain of discovering infidelity, the court must consider whether your actions constitute harassment. Have you continued to contact your wife directly against her wishes? No, Your Honor. I've blocked her number and have had no direct contact since our brief phone conversation last week. And these reports to regulatory agencies, were they filed with the primary intent of reporting legitimately suspected wrongdoing or to cause harm to your wife's family? I met her gaze steadily. Both, Your Honor. The wrongdoing is real. The motivations for reporting it may be complex. At least I was honest. The judge sighed. I appreciate your candor, Mr. Lockridge. This court deals with the dissolution of marriages daily, but rarely with such creative expressions of hurt and anger. She shuffled her papers. I'm granting a limited protective order. Mr. Lockridge, you are to have no direct contact with Nicolette Lockridge, her immediate family members, or her place of employment. This includes emails, phone calls, text messages, or physical presence. I nodded, having expected as much. However, the judge continued, I am not prohibiting Mr. Lockridge from filing legitimate reports with regulatory agencies or law enforcement, provided those reports are factually accurate. The truth, however painful, is not harassment. Patricia Walsh stood quickly. Your Honor, this effectively allows Mr. Lockridge to continue his campaign of destruction under the guise of reporting wrongdoing. No, Ms. Walsh, it allows him to report actual wrongdoing if it exists. If your clients have nothing to hide, they have nothing to fear from factual reports. The judge fixed me with a stern look. But Mr. Lockridge, be warned. If this court determines that you're using regulatory filings primarily as vehicles for harassment, you will face serious consequences. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Mr. Thorne, Ms. Walsh, I expect divorce filings within 30 days. Outside the courtroom, Benjamin shook my hand. That went better than expected. The limited order still gives you considerable latitude. It doesn't matter, I replied. The SEC already has the report on Bryce. Eleanor Barnes will have the evidence on Liam by this evening. And Joseph Winters has already agreed to review Nicolette's partnership application with special scrutiny. Benjamin studied me. And then what, Theo? When you've burned everything to the ground, what's left for you? I had no answer. As we walked toward the exit, I heard my name called. Turning, I saw Della hurrying toward me, Bryce trying to pull her back. Della, don't, he urged. The protective order applies to him contacting us, not the other way around, she snapped, breaking free. Benjamin stepped between us. Mrs. Crawford, I wouldn't advise this conversation. I don't care what you advise, Della retorted, her eyes fixed on me. I need to speak with Theo. Alone. Benjamin looked at me questioningly. I nodded, and he stepped aside, though he remained within earshot. Della's anger was palpable, her voice low but intense. What you did with the gala was cruel, Theo. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. Like you all humiliated me. I countered. When you called me garbage. When you laughed while your husband took that photo. It was a joke. One stupid, thoughtless joke. No, Della. It wasn't just a joke. It was a pattern. Years of dismissal, disrespect, and then actively helping Nicolette cheat on me. She had the grace to look ashamed at that. I never should have covered for her. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. Sorry you did it. Or sorry you got caught. Both, she admitted. But Theo, this vendetta, it has to stop. You helped Lily when she was sick. I know there's still a decent man in there somewhere. The decent man died the day he realized his entire family thought he was a joke. Della shook her head sadly. No, he didn't. That man cared for Lily when she needed him. That man is still there, fighting against whatever this is. She gestured vaguely at me. This isn't justice, Theo. It's poison, and it's poisoning you more than any of us. Before I could respond, she turned and walked back to Bryce, who led her quickly away. Benjamin clasped my shoulder. Food for thought, Theo. She's not entirely wrong. I shrugged off his hand. She's trying to manipulate me. They all are. But as I drove back to Axel's, Della's words echoed in my mind. Was I poisoning myself in the process of punishing them? Had I become so consumed by revenge that I'd lost sight of who I was? No, I decided. I was simply ensuring they faced consequences for their actions. Once justice was served, I could move on, rebuild, become someone new. That evening, Troy, Axel, and I sat in Axel's living room, watching the local news. A reporter stood outside the offices of Crawford Systems. Breaking news in the business world tonight, as the Securities and Exchange Commission has announced an investigation into Crawford Systems following allegations of misuse of client data. CEO Bryce Crawford has issued a statement denying any wrongdoing, but the company's stock has already plummeted in after-hours trading. Troy muted the television. Happy now? I said nothing, my phone buzzing with a text from Eleanor Barnes. Evidence received. Deeply disturbing. Emergency partners meeting called for tomorrow morning. Another piece falling into place. Then my phone rang. Benjamin. Theo, we have a situation, he said without preamble. Bernard Keller has filed a countersuit against you for tortious interference with business relationships. He's claiming $20 million in damages. I laughed. Let him. The FINRA investigation will bury him before his suit ever gets to court. Theo, listen to me. This is escalating beyond control. Bernard has friends in high places. If he can convince a judge that you're targeting his business out of personal vendetta rather than legitimate concern. I have evidence, Benjamin. Real evidence of questionable trading patterns. Let him sue. At least consider a mutual stand-down. We approach Patricia Walsh, offer to withdraw the FINRA complaint if Bernard drops his suit. No deals, I said firmly. No compromise. They didn't show me any mercy. I won't show them any. After hanging up, I found Troy and Axel watching me with matching expressions of concern. What? I demanded. $20 million, Theo, Axel said quietly. That's not a nuisance suit. That's Bernard trying to destroy you financially. He won't succeed. Troy stood abruptly. This has gone far enough. You made your point. They're hurting. Professionally, financially, socially. Isn't that enough? No. I replied coldly. It's not enough until they understand completely, until they feel everything I felt. And how will you know when that happens? Troy challenged. What's your metric for enough suffering? When they're bankrupt, when their careers are permanently ruined, when they're as alone as you feel right now. His words struck a nerve. You don't understand. I understand better than you think, Troy countered. Remember who you're talking to, Theo. I watched our father destroy himself with bitterness after Mom left. Watched him alienate everyone who cared about him because he couldn't let go of his anger. This is different, is it? Because from where I'm standing, you look exactly like him. Right down to the empty victory. I had no response to that. Troy had always been the blunt one, saying what others wouldn't. And now, his words had found their mark. That night, alone in the guest room, I revisited my evidence wall. Photos of Nicolette and Liam. Documents showing Bryce's unethical practices. Records of Bernard's questionable trading. All real, all damning, all justifying my actions. So why did victory taste so hollow? My phone buzzed with another text, this one for Valeria Holt, following up on our arrangement. Financial transfers detected from Keller accounts to offshore holdings. Significant amounts. Appears to be preparation for potential asset hiding. Thought you should know. Bernard was moving money, preparing for the FINRA investigation. Smart, but not smart enough. This new evidence would only strengthen the case against him. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Axel entered, carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me one. I accepted gratefully, taking a long sip. Troy's wrong, you know. I'm nothing like my father. Aren't you? Axel settled into the chair across from me. Theo, I've known you for 20 years. I've never seen you like this, consumed, obsessive, willing to burn down the world to prove a point. They betrayed me, Axel. All of them. Yes, they did. And they deserve consequences for that. But this... He gestured to the evidence wall. This isn't consequences. This is annihilation. They humiliated me. I insisted, the familiar anger rising. Made me a joke. And now you've humiliated them back. Destroyed their careers, their reputations, their financial security. When does it end, Theo? When is the debt paid? I had no answer. The truth was, I didn't know. Each new victory had brought only momentary satisfaction, quickly replaced by the need for more. More pain inflicted, more damage done, more evidence that I was no longer the victim, no longer the joke. What happened to the guy who rocked his niece to sleep even after being mocked? Axel asked softly. The guy who took her to the doctor when she was sick? That's the real Theo Lockridge. Not this avenging angel. I stared into my whiskey, remembering the weight of Lily in my arms. Her innocent trust. Her complete vulnerability. I don't know how to stop, I admitted finally. I've set too many things in motion. You start by not pushing the next domino, Axel said simply. Let Bernard's lawsuit proceed without the FINRA complaint. Let Nicolette's partnership application stand or fall on its own merits. Just stop adding fuel to the fire. It sounded so simple. Just stop. But could I? After coming this far, could I leave justice half-served? As if reading my thoughts, Axel added, It's not about them anymore, Theo. It's about you. What kind of man you want to be when this is all over? I nodded slowly, not committing but considering. I'll think about it. That night, I dreamed of Lily again. But this time, instead of rocking her to sleep, I was watching from a distance as she played with her parents, Stella and Bryce. They were teaching her to walk, holding her tiny hands as she took wobbly steps. Family clown, Bryce called, but not to me. To himself, as he made silly faces to make Lily laugh. I woke with a start, the dream lingering. Was it possible I had misinterpreted that moment? Had Bryce been referring to himself, not me? No, I decided. The evidence was too clear. The pattern of disrespect too established. My memory wasn't playing tricks on me. But even as I reassured myself, a small seed of doubt had been planted. What if in my pain and anger I had twisted their words, their intentions? What if my campaign for justice had become something else entirely? The next morning, I checked my phone to find a voicemail from Eleanor Barnes. Mr. Lockridge, this is Eleanor Barnes from Barnes & Whitfield. I received your evidence regarding Liam Riddell. After careful consideration, I've decided not to present it at this morning's partners meeting. While the information is disturbing, I've come to believe that your motivations are not aligned with our firm's values. I would appreciate no further contact from you regarding this matter. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She was protecting Liam? After everything he'd done? No, I realized. She wasn't protecting Liam. She was protecting her firm from becoming a battleground in my personal war. She had seen through me, recognized my actions for what they were, not righteous exposure of wrongdoing, but calculated destruction. And somehow, that realization hit harder than any betrayal that had come before. Chapter 7. The Turning Point. The news of Eleanor Barnes' decision hit me like a physical blow. For the first time since I'd embarked on this path, someone had looked at my evidence, real, damning evidence, and rejected it not because it was false, but because of the spirit in which it was offered. Motivations not aligned with our firm's values. Her words echoed in my mind as I paced Axel's guest room. What were my motivations, really? Justice? Revenge? Or something darker, more primal? The need to make others hurt as I was hurting? The question haunted me through breakfast, where Troy and Axel exchanged concerned glances over coffee. They knew something had shifted, but neither pressed me. I need some air, I announced, grabbing my keys. Want company? Troy offered. No, I need to think. I drove aimlessly for hours, eventually finding myself at Cathedral Park. The St. John's Bridge stretched above me, its Gothic arches reaching toward a sky heavy with rain clouds. I wandered beneath its shadow, hands deep in my pockets, mind churning. My phone buzzed with a text from Benjamin. Bernard's attorney filed preliminary injunction. Hearing tomorrow at 2. Need to prepare. The legal machinery was in motion now, grinding forward regardless of my inner turmoil. Bernard was fighting back, as Troy had warned he would, and I had no doubt he would fight dirty, using every connection, every resource at his disposal. Could I match that? Did I want to? A light rain began to fall, droplets tapping softly on my jacket. I didn't move, letting the cold water wash over me. Thought I might find you here, said a familiar voice behind me. I turned to find Valeria Holt standing there, umbrella in hand. She looked different outside of our professional meetings, more human, less the detached investigator. How did you know? I asked. She shrugged. You mentioned once that you helped design the park renovation. Said it was your favorite place to think. I nodded, vaguely remembering that conversation. What can I do for you, Valeria? Nothing. I'm here as, well, not a friend exactly. More of a concerned observer. She extended her umbrella to cover me. You look like you could use someone to talk to. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're spiraling, and I've seen enough spiral cases to recognize the signs. I laughed bitterly. Spiral cases? Is that what I am now? It's what you're becoming, she replied evenly. Clients who start with legitimate grievances but lose perspective, who become so focused on punishing those who hurt them that they lose sight of everything else. You don't understand what they did to me. I understand exactly what they did. I documented it, remember? But Theo, this path you're on, it doesn't end well. For anyone. I turned away, gazing up at the bridge. Eleanor Barnes rejected the evidence about Liam. I heard, and that bothers you because it was true. I exploded. All of it was true, and she still rejected it because of my motivations. Valeria nodded thoughtfully. Truth presented with the wrong intention is still truth. But it's not justice. Then what is justice? I demanded, letting them get away with it, turning the other cheek while they laugh at me. Justice is proportional consequences for wrongs committed. What you're pursuing isn't proportional anymore, Theo. It's nuclear. The rain fell harder now, drumming on Valeria's umbrella. In the distance, thunder rumbled. They destroyed my marriage, I said quietly. Made me a joke, the family clown. And now you've destroyed their careers, their reputations, their financial security. The debt is paid, Theo. Continuing this crusade won't bring your marriage back. It won't restore your dignity. It will only consume whatever is left of the man you used to be. Her words cut through my defenses, resonating with the doubts that had been growing within me. Was I becoming the very thing I despised? A cruel, calculating figure who took pleasure in others' pain? What would you do? I asked finally, if you were me? Valeria considered this. I'd ask myself what I really want. Not what I think I want in the heat of anger, but what I truly need to heal and move forward. And if I don't know the answer to that, then I'd start by stopping the damage, both to them and to myself. She checked her watch. I have another appointment. But Theo, remember what I told you when we first met? Most clients come to me after months or years of denial. I wasn't in denial then. I insisted. Maybe not about the affair, but perhaps about something else, about who you really are and what you're capable of. She handed me her umbrella. Keep it. Looks like the rain is here to stay. As Valeria walked away, I remained beneath the bridge, her umbrella offering scant protection against the elements. But it wasn't the rain I needed shelter from. It was the storm within myself. By the time I returned to Axel's, I had reached a decision. Not clarity, exactly, but a direction. A first step away from the abyss I'd been racing toward. Troy and Axel were in the living room, watching a basketball game with the sound muted. They looked up expectantly as I entered. I'm dropping the FINRA complaint against Bernard, I announced. Troy muted the TV entirely. What changed your mind? I met with Valeria. She helped me see some things more clearly. The PI. Axel raised an eyebrow. Didn't expect her to be the voice of reason. She's seen this before. Clients who start with legitimate grievances but lose perspective. I used her exact words, finding comfort in their clarity. I'm becoming someone I don't recognize, and I need to put on the brakes. Troy nodded slowly. It's a start. What about Bernard's lawsuit? I'll still fight that, but defensively, not offensively. No more preemptive strikes. The relief on their faces was palpable. For weeks, they had been watching me transform into someone harder, colder, more calculating. Now, perhaps they saw a glimpse of the brother and friend they knew. I'm going to call Benjamin, I said, reaching for my phone. Let him know the change in strategy. Benjamin was surprised, but supportive. A wise decision, Theo. Fighting Bernard in court is one thing. Taking on his entire firm with a federal complaint is quite another. This gives us a stronger negotiating position for tomorrow's hearing. Negotiating? I repeated. I'm not interested in deals. Hear me out. Bernard's suit is largely punitive, designed to bankrupt you with legal fees even if he doesn't win. But if we approach them with a mutual de-escalation proposal, you withdraw the SEC complaint against Bryce, cancel the FINRA report, and Bernard drops his suit. Everyone walks away with minimal further damage. And Nicolette, I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. What does she get in this deal? What she's already received. Public humiliation, professional scrutiny, the end of her affair with Liam. Isn't that enough? Was it enough? A month ago, I would have said no. Now, I wasn't so sure. Let me think about it, I said finally. I'll see you at the hearing tomorrow. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake in Axel's guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the past weeks in my mind. The restaurant confrontation, the fake charity gala, the regulatory complaints. Each step had felt necessary, justified. Now, I wasn't so certain. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code, Dallas. Lily's asking for you. She keeps saying Theo and reaching for your photo. I know we can't contact you directly because of the order, but thought you should know. A photo followed. Lily in her crib, clutching a framed picture of me holding her at her christening. Her tiny face was solemn, focused on the image she held. Something broke inside me, a dam of anger and bitterness that had been holding back emotions I'd refused to acknowledge. In their place rushed guilt, regret, and a profound sadness for all that had been lost. Not just my marriage, but the extended family I had once been part of, however imperfectly. I didn't respond to the text. I couldn't, but I saved the photo of Lily, a reminder of innocence amidst the wreckage I'd created. The next day, I arrived at the courthouse determined to end the cycle of destruction. Benjamin met me on the steps, briefcase in hand, expression cautiously optimistic. I've been in touch with Bernard's attorney, he informed me. They're open to discussing a settlement before the hearing. Good, I replied. I want this over. Inside, we were directed to a conference room where Bernard and his attorney, a sharp-faced man named Victor Reynolds, were already waiting. Bernard's eyes flickered with surprise at my appearance. I had lost weight in recent weeks, and dark circles shadowed my eyes. I probably looked as hollowed out as I felt. Mr. Lockridge, Reynolds began formally. My client is prepared to discuss terms for ending this dispute. So are we, Benjamin replied. Mr. Lockridge has already taken steps to withdraw certain complaints filed with regulatory agencies. Bernard scoffed. Too little, too late. The damage is done, as is the damage to my client's marriage and reputation. Benjamin countered smoothly. We're not here to debate who hurt whom more effectively. We're here to stop the bleeding on both sides. Reynolds laid out Bernard's terms. Complete withdrawal of all complaints, a signed non-disparagement agreement, and a substantial financial settlement for emotional distress and business interference. Benjamin was already shaking his head. The complaints can be withdrawn. A mutual non-disparagement agreement is reasonable. But my client will not pay damages for exposing actual wrongdoing. Wrongdoing? Bernard sputtered. He fabricated allegations about my firm's trading practices. I didn't fabricate anything, I said quietly, speaking for the first time. Every report was based on documented patterns in your trading history. Patterns that might not be illegal, but certainly raise ethical questions. Bernard's face flushed with anger. You targeted me because of personal vendetta, not legitimate concern. Yes, I admitted, surprising even Benjamin. My motivations were personal, but the evidence was real. A tense silence filled the room. Bernard and Reynolds exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this candor. Here's what I propose, I continued. I withdraw all complaints against Bernard and Bryce. I sign a non-disparagement agreement covering the entire Keller family. In return, Bernard drops his lawsuit, and everyone agrees to leave me alone moving forward. And the financial settlement, Reynolds pressed. There won't be one, I stated firmly, but I will cover my own legal fees. Bernard considered this, his expression calculating. And Nicolette, what are your terms regarding the divorce? That's between me and Nicolette. It has nothing to do with this agreement. Another silent exchange between Bernard and his attorney. Finally, Reynolds nodded. We'll need everything in writing, but these terms are acceptable. As Benjamin and Reynolds hammered out the details, Bernard and I sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and controlled. You went too far, Theo. Whatever you thought we did to you. Your response was disproportionate. I know, I conceded. I lost perspective. Why the change of heart now? Why not see it through to the bitter end? I thought of Lily clutching my photo, of Valeria's warning about becoming unrecognizable to myself, of Troy's comparison to our bitter, self-destructive father. Because the bitter end is just that, bitter. For everyone involved. Bernard studied me, seeming to see me clearly for perhaps the first time. Nicolette is devastated, not just by the exposure of the affair, but by what you've become. This cold, calculating stranger. I'm trying to find my way back, I said simply. When the preliminary agreement was drafted, we all signed. The hearing was canceled by mutual consent, and Bernard and Reynolds departed without further exchange. Outside the courthouse, Benjamin shook my hand. That was well handled, Theo. A month ago, you would have gone for Bernard's throat regardless of the cost to yourself. A month ago, I was a different person. And now? Who are you now? I had no answer. I was in transition, no longer the family clown, but not the avenging angel either. Something in between, or perhaps something new entirely. That evening, I received an email from Joseph Winters, the founding partner at Nicolette's firm. Theo, following our conversation about Nicolette's partnership application, I wanted to let you know that the committee will be evaluating her solely on her professional merits. Whatever personal issues exist between you two will not factor into our decision. I hope you understand that this is the only ethical approach. I replied simply, I do understand. Thank you. Another domino I would not push. Another fire I would not fuel. The next morning, Benjamin called with news. Patricia Walsh reached out. Nicolette wants to meet, just the two of you. No attorneys. My instinct was to refuse. What could Nicolette possibly say that would matter now? But then I thought of Illyria's question, what did I really want? Not in the heat of anger, but deep down, closure, perhaps, understanding, a chance to look her in the eye one last time before we went our separate ways. When and where? I asked. Neutral ground. The coffee shop near Pioneer Square. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be there. Troy was skeptical when I told him. Are you sure that's wise? After everything that's happened? Probably not, I admitted. But necessary. Axel, more optimistic by nature, saw it differently. It's a good sign, Theo. Maybe she wants to apologize, make amends, or serve me with more legal papers. I countered. Either way, you'll face it. That's a Theo I know. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, selecting a table near the window with clear sight lines to the entrance. Old habits from weeks of surveillance and counter-surveillance. Nicolette arrived precisely at 10, dressed in the navy suit she wore for important court appearances. Her hair was pulled back severely, emphasizing the angles of her face. She had lost weight too. I noticed her cheekbones more prominent than before. She spotted me immediately, hesitating only briefly before approaching. I stood, an automatic courtesy that felt strange given our recent hostilities. Theo, she acknowledged, taking the seat across from me. Nicolette, a barista approached, and we both ordered black coffee for me, a latte for her. Same as always. Some patterns survived, even the death of a marriage. Thank you for agreeing to meet, she began once the barista had left. I know it can't have been an easy decision. Why did you want to see me? I asked, dispensing with pleasantries. She folded her hands on the table, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. Several reasons. First, to tell you that Liam and I are over. I hadn't expected that. I didn't ask. I know, but I thought you should know. After the restaurant, after the emails, he couldn't handle the scrutiny, the judgment from colleagues. He ended things that night. I'm sorry, I said automatically, then frowned at my own response. No, I'm not sorry, but I didn't intend to cause you pain. She raised an eyebrow. Didn't you? Isn't that exactly what you set out to do? I set out to expose the truth. The pain was collateral damage. Collateral damage, she repeated softly. Like our marriage. I leaned forward. Our marriage was damaged long before I discovered your affair, Nicolette. We both know that. She nodded, acknowledging the truth of this. We were broken, but I never should have sought comfort elsewhere before ending things cleanly with you. That was cowardly, and I'm sorry. The apology, so long awaited, now felt hollow. What good were words against the weeks of pain, humiliation, and bitter revenge? Is that all you wanted to say? I asked, my voice harder than I intended. No, I also wanted to thank you for not interfering with my partnership application. Joseph told me you had approached him, then later backed off. I realized some lines shouldn't be crossed, even in war. She studied me, her gaze searching. What happened to you, Theo? When did you become so cold? When did you start seeing me as a joke? I countered. The family clown, entertaining you all with his obliviousness? Pain flashed across her face. Is that what you think? That we all sat around laughing at you? Wasn't that exactly what happened with Lily? When she threw up on me, and you called me garbage? When Bryce took that photo and labeled me the family clown? Nicolette closed her eyes briefly. That day, yes, we were unkind, thoughtless. But Theo, it wasn't a coordinated campaign of mockery. It was one bad moment among many good ones. One I can't forget, I said quietly. One that opened my eyes to how you all really saw me. That's not fair. You're taking one incident and using it to rewrite our entire history. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps I had allowed that moment to color everything that came before it. But did that make my pain any less real? Why did you do it, Nicolette? Why Liam? She sighed, running a finger around the rim of her cup. It wasn't about Liam specifically. It was about feeling seen, valued. Somewhere along the way, we stopped really seeing each other, Theo. I became the career-obsessed wife. You became the accommodating husband. We played our roles, so we forgot there were actual people behind the masks. So, you found someone who saw the real you. I found someone who saw a new version of me, but wasn't real either. Just another role to play. She met my gaze directly. I didn't love him, Theo. I was using him to feel something. Anything besides the emptiness of our marriage. Her honesty was disarming. I had expected defiance, perhaps more lies. Not this raw vulnerability. I wanted children, I said suddenly, the admission surprising even me. I always did, but I respected your career, your choices. I thought someday you'd be ready. I know, she replied softly, and I kept moving the goalposts. First after making associate, then senior associate, then it was partnership. Always one more achievement before we could start a family. Would we ever have been ready? Together, I mean. She considered this. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we wanted different things all along and were too afraid to admit it. Our drinks arrived, momentarily interrupting the flow of painful truths. When a barista left, Nicolette reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but close. Theo, what you did, exposing the affair, humiliating us publicly, going after my family's livelihoods, it was cruel. Calculated. But I understand why you did it. If I had discovered you cheating, been mocked by your family, I might have done the same. No, I shook my head. You wouldn't have. You're many things, Nicolette, but vindictive isn't one of them. You weren't vindictive either. Before. Everything in our lives now seemed divided into before and after. Before the affair. Before the humiliation. Before I became someone neither of us recognized. I'm trying to find my way back, I told her, echoing what I'd said to Bernard. Not to who I was before. I don't think that's possible. But to someone I can live with. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. That's why I wanted to meet. Not just to clear the air, but to ask. Can we end this war? For both our sakes. The legal aspects are already in motion, I reminded her. The divorce, the settlements. I'm not talking about legal documents. I'm talking about the emotional battlefield. The need to make each other hurt. Can we just stop? Could we? After everything that had happened, could we simply decide to stop inflicting pain on each other? I'm willing to try, I said finally. I've already withdrawn the complaints against your father and Bryce. Called off the FINRA investigation. Relief softened her features. Thank you. And I'll talk to my family. Make it clear that any further action against you ends now. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 years of marriage and 2 months of warfare hanging between us. There's one more thing, Nicolette said, reaching into her purse. She withdrew an envelope and slid it across the table. Della asked me to give you this. It's from Lily. Well, from Della on Lily's behalf. Inside the envelope was a photograph. Lily in her high chair, covered in finger paint, beaming at the camera. On the back, in Della's handwriting, Lily's first art project. She wanted Uncle Theo to have it. Something shifted inside me, a loosening of the tight knot of bitterness I'd been carrying for weeks. This small gesture of innocence, of connection untainted by adult betrayals, felt like a lifeline to a better version of myself. Tell Della, thank you, I managed, carefully returning the photo to its envelope. And tell Lily, tell her Uncle Theo misses her. Nicolette's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I will. As we prepared to leave, she hesitated. Theo, I know we can't go back. Too much has happened. But I hope someday we can look at each other and see people, not enemies. I hope so too, I replied, and was surprised to find I meant it. Outside the coffee shop, we parted with an awkward handshake, too formal for people who had shared a bed for 8 years, but the only contact that felt appropriate now. As I watched her walk away, I realized that for the first time in months, the burning need for revenge had quieted to embers. Chapter 8. The Aftermath. The weeks following my meeting with Nicolette passed in a blur of legal proceedings, paperwork, and quiet reflection. The divorce moved forward efficiently, both of us committed to ending things as cleanly as possible. I found an apartment in a different part of town, away from the memories our house held. Troy helped me move in, his presence a silent support as I began building a new life from the wreckage of the old. It's not much, I said as we carried in the last of my boxes, mostly books and architectural drafting supplies. The furniture had been delivered earlier. Troy surveyed the sparse space. Open layout, large windows, hardwood floors. It has good bones. You'll make it your own. That's the plan. We ordered pizza and ate sitting on the floor, moving boxes serving as makeshift tables. It reminded me of our first apartment after college, before Troy had moved to Montana, before I had met Nicolette. Remember Sacramento Street? Troy asked, reading my thoughts. That shithole walk-up with the leaky ceiling. I smiled at the memory. And the neighbor who practiced saxophone at 3 a.m. Good times. Troy raised his beer in a mock toast. To new beginnings in better accommodations. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my bottle against his. Later, as Troy prepared to head back to Axel's for his last night before returning to Montana, he paused at the door. You're going to be okay, Theo. You know that, right? I'm starting to believe it. And the revenge thing? That chapter's closed. I nodded slowly. It didn't bring me what I thought it would. Justice, closure, whatever I was looking for, it wasn't in making them suffer. Where is it, then? I'm still figuring that out. But I think it starts with letting go. Troy clapped me on the shoulder, his grip firm. That's the brother I know. Call me if you need anything. Montana's not that far. After he left, I stood in the center of my new space, feeling the emptiness around me. Not a crushing emptiness, but an open one, a canvas waiting to be filled with whatever came next. The following Monday, I returned to work full-time, immersing myself in the Westbrook Tower project that had been neglected during my campaign of revenge. My colleagues were quietly supportive, asking no questions about my extended absence or the rumors that had inevitably circulated. Valeria Holt called midweek. Checking in, she said when I answered. How are you holding up? Better, I replied honestly. Taking it day by day. Good. I wanted to let you know that I've removed all surveillance on the Kellers and associated parties, as requested. The final invoice is in your email. Thank you, Valeria. Not just for the professional services, but for that talk in the park. Sometimes we all need someone to hold up a mirror, she said simply. Even investigators. Especially investigators, I countered, earning a rare laugh from her. Take care of yourself, Theo. And if you ever need to talk, professionally or otherwise, you know where to find me. The conversation left me thoughtful. Valeria had seen me at my worst, calculating, vengeful, consumed by bitterness. Yet she had still reached out, still believed there was something in me worth saving. Was there? The question haunted me as I settled into my new routine. Work, home, occasional dinners with Axel, who watched me with lingering concern. I was functioning, but was I healing? 3 weeks after moving into my apartment, I received an unexpected email from Della. Lily's first birthday party is next Saturday. I know things are complicated, but she asks for Teo every day. You're welcome to come if you feel comfortable. No pressure. Della. Attached was a photo of Lily in a bouncer, reaching toward the camera with a gummy smile. My instinct was to decline. The wounds were still too fresh, the memories of betrayal too vivid. But something else pulled at me. The innocence in Lily's eyes, the chance to be part of her life despite the broken relationships around us. I replied, after careful consideration, thank you for the invitation. I'd like to come, but I understand if others might be uncomfortable. Please let me know if there are any objections. Della's response came quickly. No objections. 2 p.m. at our house. Casual. Just family and a few close friends. Just family. The phrase carried both pain and possibility. The morning of the party, I found myself standing in a toy store, overwhelmed by options. What do you buy for the niece you almost lost in the crossfire of adult betrayals? In the end, I selected a set of wooden building blocks. Simple, timeless, a foundation for creating something new. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. Arriving at Della and Bryce's house felt surreal. The last time I'd been here, I was installing surveillance equipment, gathering ammunition for my war against them. Now I was arriving openly, bearing gifts, uncertain of my welcome despite the invitation. Della answered the door, Lily on her hip. The baby's face lit up with recognition. Teo, she exclaimed, reaching for me with pudgy hands. Hi, Lily Bean, I said, using the nickname I'd given her when she was born. Happy birthday. Della transferred her to my arms without hesitation, a gesture of trust that brought a lump to my throat. Thanks for coming, she said softly. It means a lot to her. To us. Inside, the atmosphere was initially tense. Bryce nodded stiffly from across the room. Bernard and Sandra Keller hovered near the food table, their discomfort evident. But Lily's joy at being the center of attention broke through the awkwardness, her laughter a bridge across the chasms we adults had created. I stayed at the periphery, holding Lily when she wanted to be held, watching as she was passed from relative to relative, showered with love and presence. This was what mattered, I realized. Not the grievances between us, but the connections that survived them. As the party wound down, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Bryce. He was loading dishes into the dishwasher, his movements mechanical, avoiding my gaze. "Need a hand?" I offered, picking up a stack of plates. He hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks." We worked in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the clink of dishes and the distant chatter from the living room. "I never called you the family clown," Bryce said suddenly, his voice low. "That day with Lily, I was talking about myself, making a joke about how I always end up as the entertainment at family gatherings." I froze, a glass suspended in midair. "What?" I said. "That's our family clown, because I was always acting silly to make Lily laugh." "It wasn't about you, Theo. It was never about you." The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. "But Nicolette called me garbage. Della said Lily learns fast." Bryce sighed, closing the dishwasher. "Nicolette made a tasteless joke, yes." And Della laughed because she was sleep-deprived and anything seemed funny. It was thoughtless, insensitive. But it wasn't some conspiracy to humiliate you. Could it be true? Had I built an entire campaign of revenge on a misunderstanding? On words never meant the way I had interpreted them? The surveillance on my computer? I challenged, grasping for evidence that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. The spying? Bryce had the grace to look ashamed. That was wrong. Della was worried about Nicolette, afraid the affair would blow up badly. She asked me to check if you suspected anything. I should have refused, but he trailed off, shrugging helplessly. "But family comes first," I finished for him. Something like that. He met my gaze finally. "I'm not proud of it, Theo. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry." Sorry. Such a small word for the magnitude of what had happened. It somehow, in that moment, it felt enough. Not to erase the past, but to acknowledge it honestly. "I'm sorry too," I replied, "for what I did to your company, your reputation." Bryce nodded, acceptance rather than forgiveness. We all made choices we can't take back. From the living room came the sound of Lily's delighted shriek as someone, Bernard, by the deep laugh that followed, played peekaboo with her. "She loves you, you know," Bryce said. "Keeps your picture by her crib. Points to it every night before bed and says Teo." The revelation both warmed and wounded me. While I had been plotting destruction, this innocent child had been holding onto her connection to me. "I'd like to be in her life," I said. "If that's possible now." "It's possible," Bryce confirmed. "It won't be easy. There's a lot of hurt on all sides. But for Lily's sake, we can try." When I left the party, Della walked me to the door, Lily half asleep on her shoulder. "Thank you for the blocks," she said. "They're perfect." I'm glad she liked them. Della hesitated, then spoke in a rush. "Theo, about what happened. All of it. I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. Covering for Nicolette was wrong, and I regret it deeply. But the other things, the comments, the laughter, it wasn't what you thought." Bryce told me. I said, "About the family clown comment." Relief flooded her face. "He was always the goofy one at family gatherings. That's all he meant." "I believe you," I said, and was surprised to find it was true. I built an entire narrative based on what I thought I heard, what I thought I saw. I was wrong. We all were, Della said softly. You for misinterpreting. Us for not seeing how much you were hurting. Nicolette for everything else. Lily stirred, her tiny hand reaching out to pat my cheek. "Teo," she murmured sleepily. "Yes, Lily Bean. Uncle Theo is here," I whispered, letting her tiny fingers curl around mine. "And I always will be." As I drove home, my mind churned with new revelations. The foundation of my revenge, my interpretation of that fateful day, had been built on shifting sand. Yet the affair, the deception, the surveillance, those betrayals had been real. What did it mean for my campaign of retribution? Had it been justified, or had I become something worse than those who had wronged me? That night, I sat in my half-unpacked apartment and faced these questions honestly for the first time. I had responded to hurt with calculated destruction. to humiliation with systematic dismantling of lives and careers. The proportionality that Valeria had spoken of was nowhere to be found in my actions. Yet I couldn't bring myself to regret everything. The truth had needed exposure. The affair, the conspiracy of silence around it, the invasion of my privacy. These things deserve consequences. Perhaps the problem wasn't in seeking justice, but in allowing that pursuit to consume me until the man seeking justice disappeared. The next morning, I called Benjamin. I need to finalize the divorce, I told him. Clean, fair, no punitive demands. I want this over. That's unexpected, he replied cautiously. Are you sure? Positive. I'm ready to move forward. And I was. Not with forgiveness. Some betrayals cut too deep for that, but with a clear-eyed determination to rebuild my life without the weight of vengeance driving every decision. 2 days later, I received a call from Eleanor Barnes. Mr. Lockridge, I hope I'm not overstepping by contacting you. Not at all, I assured her, curious about this unexpected connection. I wanted you to know that Mr. Riddell has resigned from the firm. The partners felt it was in everyone's best interest. I see, I replied, unsure why she was sharing this information. There's something else, she continued. We're undertaking a significant renovation of our offices. Your name came up repeatedly as one of the best architectural minds in Portland. Would you be interested in submitting a proposal? The irony wasn't lost on me. The very firm I had tried to manipulate was now offering me a professional opportunity. I would be, I said after a moment's consideration. Thank you for thinking of me. Excellence deserves recognition, Mr. Lockridge, even when it comes in complicated packages. Perhaps that was true of all of us. Complicated packages of strength and weakness, courage and cowardice, capacity for both love and destruction. Chapter 9. The Resolution. 6 months after Lily's birthday party, life had settled into new patterns. My architectural practice was thriving, bolstered by the Barnes and Whitfield renovation and several other high-profile projects that had followed. My apartment had become a home, sparse but intentional in its design, a reflection of the man I was becoming. The divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier, equitable, without the scorched-earth tactics I had once contemplated. Nicolette had accepted a position at a firm in Seattle, a fresh start for her as well. We communicated occasionally, brief and businesslike exchanges about final property matters or administrative details. My relationship with Della and Bryce had evolved into something cautiously cordial. I visited Lily once or twice a month, these encounters carefully scheduled to avoid awkward overlaps with other family members. Bernard and Sandra Keller remained distant figures. Our only connection the birthday and Christmas cards they sent out of obligation rather than warmth. I was rebuilding, but not returning. The man who had rocked Lily to sleep that first day, trusting, eager to please, desperate for acceptance, was gone. In his place stood someone more discerning, more guarded, more aware of his own boundaries. On a crisp autumn morning, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Liam Riddell, looking considerably less polished than when I had last seen him at the Ocean View Resort. "Do you have a minute?" he asked from my doorway, his confidence notably diminished. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, curiosity overriding my instinctive dislike. "What can I do for you, Liam?" He sat, fidgeting with his watch band. I wanted to apologize, face to face, for everything that happened with Nicolette. "That's between you and Nicolette," I replied coolly. "No, it's not. I knowingly pursued a married woman. I helped destroy your marriage. That's between you and me." I studied him, trying to discern his motivation. "Why now? It's been almost a year." Liam sighed, the sound heavy with regret. "I've had a lot of time to think since leaving Barnes and Whitfield, about the kind of man I want to be, the kind I've been." He met my gaze directly. "I'm not proud of what I did. And you think an apology fixes that?" "No, nothing fixes it, but acknowledging it is a start." I leaned back in my chair, considering his words. There was a time when I would have savored his downfall, seen it as justice served for his role in my humiliation. Now, I felt only a distant pity. "I appreciate you coming," I said finally, "but I don't need your apology to move forward with my life." "I understand. I just thought," That I'd absolve you? Release you from guilt? That's not my responsibility, Liam. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. For what it's worth, Nicolette never spoke of you with anything but respect. What happened between us, it wasn't about you being inadequate. The comment, likely meant as reassurance, scraped against old wounds. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, I guess not. He stood, recognizing the conversation was over. Thank you for seeing me. As he reached the door, I called after him. Liam. He turned, a flicker of hope in his expression. The affair, it's in the past. I've moved beyond it. But some betrayals can't be undone with words. Remember that in your future relationships. He accepted this with a grim nod and left. After he was gone, I sat reflecting on the encounter. A year ago, I would have orchestrated his professional destruction. Now, I simply wanted no part of his redemption narrative. It was a different kind of strength. Not the fiery vengeance that had consumed me, but a steady resolve to protect myself from those who had proven untrustworthy. That evening, I met Axel for dinner at our usual spot, a quiet restaurant where the staff knew us well enough to provide a private corner booth. Guess who showed up in my office today? I said after we had ordered. Based on that expression, Satan himself. Close. Liam Riddell. Axel's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? What did he want? I recounted the brief encounter, Liam's apology, my response. You're a better man than me, Axel commented. I might have punched him. Violence was never my style, I reminded him. Even at my worst. True, you were always more chess player than boxer. He studied me over his water glass. You seem different talking about it now. Less. Consumed, I suggested. Exactly. Like you've actually moved on, not just pretended to. Had I? The pain had dulled, certainly. The obsessive need to make them all pay had faded. But forgiveness? That was a different matter. I've accepted what happened, I said carefully. That doesn't mean I've forgotten or forgiven. Fair enough. Axel raised his glass. To acceptance without amnesia. I'll drink to that. Later that week, I attended a fundraiser for the Portland Children's Hospital. A genuine one this time, not a fabrication designed to humiliate Della. I had been invited by Councilwoman Reeves, whose support had been valuable as my architectural practice regained its footing. The event was held at the Riverside Hotel, the same venue where my fake charity gala had been scheduled. The irony wasn't lost on me as I entered the ballroom, now filled with Portland's elite in formal attire. I was mingling with a group of potential clients when I spotted her across the room. Nicolette, stunning in a midnight blue gown, her hair styled differently than she had worn it during our marriage. Beside her stood a man I didn't recognize, his hand resting casually at the small of her back. Our eyes met briefly, a current of recognition passing between us. She offered a small, uncertain smile. I nodded in acknowledgement and turned back to my conversation. Later, as I was getting a drink at the bar, she appeared beside me. Theo, she said softly, I didn't expect to see you here. Councilwoman Reeves invited me. I explained. I'm working on the new community center project. That's wonderful. I heard your practice is doing well. It is. I nodded toward the man she had been with. You seem to be doing well, too. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Preston is the junior partner at my new firm. We've been seeing each other for a few months. I hope he treats you better than you treated me, I said, the words emerging before I could filter them. Nicolette flinched, but didn't back down. I deserve that. But yes, he does. And I'm trying to be a better partner than I was to you. Good. An awkward silence stretched between us. Years of shared history and pain creating an invisible barrier. How's Lily? I asked finally, seeking neutral ground. Nicolette's expression softened. Growing so fast. She asks about you all the time. Della says your visits mean the world to her. She means the world to me, I replied simply. Another pause, this one less tense. Theo, I know we've said this before, but I am truly sorry for the pain I caused you. Not just the affair, but the years of taking you for granted. I studied her, seeing both the woman I had loved and the stranger she had become. I believe you're sorry, Nicolette, but some things can't be fixed with apologies. I know. She glanced toward Preston, who was watching us with barely concealed curiosity. I should get back. Of course. She hesitated, then asked, Are you happy, Theo? Moving forward, was I? The question gave me pause. I had rebuilt my career, established new boundaries, found a way to maintain my connection with Lily without drowning in bitterness. But happiness? I'm at peace, I said finally. The rest will come. She nodded, understanding. I hope it does. You deserve that. As she walked away, I felt no urge to follow, no ache of what might have been. The woman who had once been the center of my world was now simply someone from my past. Not forgotten, but no longer defining my present or future. The real test came 2 weeks later when Troy called with unexpected news. I'm getting married, he announced without preamble. What? To whom? I had no idea he was even in a serious relationship. Her name's Vanessa. We've been together for 6 months. I wanted to tell you in person, but Montana's not exactly around the corner. I finished for him. Congratulations, Troy. I'm happy for you. Thanks. There's more, though. The wedding is in Portland. Portland? Why not Montana? Vanessa's family is here. Her father's health isn't great, so travel is difficult for him. Troy paused, then continued in a rush. And I want you to be my best man. Of course, I agreed immediately. I'd be honored. One more thing, Troy added, his voice turning cautious. Vanessa's cousin is Nicolette's new colleague, Preston Mercer. The connection took a moment to register. Preston? The man she's dating? Yeah, small world, huh? They'll both be at the wedding. I wanted you to know up front, give you the chance to back out if it's too awkward. I considered this. A year ago, the prospect of watching Nicolette with her new partner would have been unbearable. Now, it was merely uncomfortable. I'll be there, I promised. This is your day. I'm not going to let old history overshadow that. Troy's relief was audible. Thanks, Theo. It means a lot. The wedding was held at the Portland Botanical Gardens on a perfect spring day. Troy, nervous but beaming, stood beside me as we waited for his bride. The ceremony was intimate. Only 30 guests seated in white chairs on the manicured lawn. I was acutely aware of Nicolette and Preston 3 rows back, her head occasionally leaning toward his as they whispered comments. But their presence didn't dominate my thoughts as I had feared it might. At the reception, I gave my toast, heartfelt words about brotherhood, second chances, and the courage to love again after loss. Troy's eyes shone with unshed tears as he embraced me afterward, whispering, "Thank you for being here. For everything." I was at the bar when Nicolette approached, alone this time. "Beautiful ceremony," she commented, ordering a glass of champagne. "Troy seems genuinely happy," I agreed. "Vanessa is lovely. They fit well together," Nicolette observed. "It's nice to see." We fell into surprisingly comfortable small talk, neutral topics like the venue, the food, mutual acquaintances we had seen. Then she asked, "Are you seeing anyone?" "Not seriously," I replied. There had been a few dates in recent months, but nothing that had evolved into a relationship. "Preston proposed last week," she said, holding up her left hand to reveal a modest diamond. I said yes. I felt a twinge, not jealousy exactly, but a complex emotion I couldn't immediately name. "Congratulations. I hope you've learned from our mistakes. Both of us have, I think." She studied me thoughtfully. "You know, for a long time after everything happened, I was angry with you. The way you exposed the affair, went after my family, my career, it felt disproportionate, cruel. It was, I acknowledged. I lost myself for a while, but I understand it better now. The betrayal, the humiliation, you were retaliating for real pain." She twisted her new engagement ring nervously. "I guess what I'm saying is, I forgive you for that. And I hope someday you might forgive me too." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone seeking closure, a clean slate to begin her new life. But forgiveness? Some betrayals cut too deep for that. "I wish you happiness with Preston," I said carefully. "I've moved past the anger, the need for revenge. But forgiveness is different. Some broken things can't be repaired." Disappointment flickered across her face, but she nodded in acceptance. "I understand. Thank you for your honesty." Preston appeared at her side, his arms sliding possessively around her waist. "Everything all right, Nick?" "Just catching up with Theo," she assured him. He extended his hand to me. "Nice to finally meet you properly. I've heard a lot about you." I'm sure you have, I replied, shaking his hand firmly. Congratulations on your engagement. His smile was genuine but cautious. Thank you. We're very happy. I excused myself, leaving them to their celebration, their future together. As I crossed the reception area, Valeria Holt intercepted me. Troy had invited her as thanks for her role in preventing my self-destruction. Holding up okay? She asked, eyeing Nicolette and Preston. Better than expected, I admitted. It's strange, seeing her with someone else. But not devastating. Progress, Valeria noted approvingly. Though I noticed you didn't accept her olive branch completely. You were eavesdropping? Professional habit, she said unapologetically. Old skills die hard. I sighed. I can't give her what she wants. Absolution isn't mine to grant. No, it isn't, Valeria agreed. But not forgiving isn't the same as holding on to anger. One is a boundary, the other a prison. I'm not angry anymore, I assured her. Just realistic about some wounds never fully healing. Fair enough. She clinked her glass against mine. To realism, then, and new chapters. 2 months after Troy's wedding, I received an unexpected call from Bernard Keller. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity won out. Theodore, he greeted me formally. I hope I'm not disturbing you. What can I do for you, Bernard? I asked, bypassing pleasantries. Sandra and I are hosting a small gathering next weekend. A birthday celebration for Lily. We'd like you to attend. The invitation stunned me. Why? Because you're her uncle, he replied simply. And despite our differences, family connections matter. Especially to Lily. I considered declining, erecting the boundary that had protected me from further hurt. But Lily's face flashed in my mind. Her innocent joy when she saw me, her complete lack of awareness of the adult complexities around her. I'll be there, I agreed finally. For Lily. For Lily, Bernard echoed, a note of respect in his voice. The gathering was smaller than Lily's first birthday, just the immediate family and a few close friends. To my surprise, there was no tension when I arrived, no awkward silences or pointed looks. Instead, there was a collective acknowledgement that while the past couldn't be erased, it need not poison the present. As I watched Lily blow out her candles, with considerable help from Bryce, I reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. From the moment of humiliation that had triggered my downfall, through the darkest depths of my revenge campaign, to this unexpected moment of fragile peace. I had not forgiven those who betrayed me. Nicolette, who had shattered our marriage, Della and Bryce, who had aided her deception, Bernard and Sandra, who had known and said nothing. That wasn't in my nature. Some violations of trust could never be fully reconciled. But I had found a way to live alongside the past without being consumed by it. To maintain connections that mattered, like my bond with Lily, while protecting myself from further harm. After the party, as I was preparing to leave, Bernard approached me. A word, if you don't mind. We stepped onto the back porch, the evening air cool against my skin. I want you to know, he began, that I regret not intervening when I learned of Nicolette's affair. As her father, I should have encouraged her to be honest, to end the marriage cleanly if that was what she wanted. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. He sighed heavily. Cowardice, perhaps. Fear of losing my relationship with my daughter. Or maybe just the arrogance of thinking I knew better than you what was happening in your marriage. And now? Do you still think you knew better? No, he admitted. Now I think we all failed. Nicolette and her vows, Sandra and I as parents, Della and Bryce as confidants. And you, in your response. I won't apologize for exposing the truth, I said firmly. I'm not asking you to. The truth needed exposing. It was the rest, the systematic dismantling of our lives, careers, reputations, that went beyond justice into vengeance. Yes, I acknowledged. It did. Bernard studied me, perhaps seeing for the first time the man I had become rather than the one he had dismissed. You're not what I expected, Theodore. You've rebuilt, moved forward, without forgiveness, but also without bitterness. That takes a kind of strength I didn't credit you with. I had good people in my corner, I replied, thinking of Troy, Axel, Valeria. They wouldn't let me destroy myself along with everyone else. Good. Bernard extended his hand. We'll never be friends, you and I. Too much has happened. But for Lily's sake, perhaps we could be family of a sort. I accepted his handshake, recognizing it for what it was. Not reconciliation, but a negotiated peace. For Lily, later that night, in the solitude of my apartment, I reflected on Bernard's words. Without forgiveness, but also without bitterness. It was an apt description of where I had landed after the storm. I would never forget the betrayals, never fully trust those who had once conspired against me. The man who had rocked baby Lily to sleep, trusting, eager to please, was gone forever. In his place stood someone stronger, more discerning, more protective of his boundaries. Someone who understood that not all broken things should be repaired, that some endings were necessary for new beginnings. The family clown had taken off his makeup, stepped out of the role assigned to him, and written his own script. Not one of forgiveness, some wounds ran too deep for that, but of forward movement, of building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. And in that, I had found, if not happiness, then something perhaps more valuable: authenticity. The freedom to be exactly who I was, without apology or performance. As I gazed out at the city lights, I felt the final pieces settle into place. The chapter of revenge was closed. The future, with all its possibilities, lay open before me. I would never again be anyone's clown, and in that certainty, I found my peace. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.